When it comes to products and your safety, federal law gives agencies, namely the Consumer Product Safety Commission, the power to order recalls of defective products. This teddy bear, a danger to your child, it can be recalled. This car safety seat, the same. But when it comes to this, the government is shooting blanks. It has no recall firepower.
You heard right. Federal law actually exempts guns from the government's recall reach. If there's a design or manufacturing flaw with a firearm or ammo, it's up to the manufacturer to voluntarily recall the product.
I never knew they didn't have no safety regulations on weapons.
Jim Welch knows guns. He's been handling them since his youth. But on a Colorado hunting trip back in the late 90s, he recalls a close call with his Remington Model 700 rifle.
I just sat down and it just barely tapped the ground and went off.
Welch swears his hands weren't even close to the trigger. Same story in 2011, he says, when his then wife used the same gun.
Deer come up and she reached over and flipped the safety off and it discharged it.
Again, no finger on the trigger.
Nothing around the trigger.
In both misfires, no one was hurt.
With the rifles in safe, I'm preparing to fire. I push it to the fire position, and at that moment the rifle fires.
Attorney Tim Monsees has filed dozens of gun lawsuits over his 3 decades of practice. In fact, a Montana client whose 9-year-old son died in a misfire uncovered documents suggesting Remington knew of a trigger defect before the first Model 700 ever hit the market in 1947.
And there was a relatively inexpensive fix that they chose not to use.
Well, you can adjust it for inflation, but at the time it was a nickel.
And had that adjustment been made, would we be having this discussion today?
I like to think not.
Monsees, now representing Remington rifle owners in a nationwide class action, also believes had the feds had the power to order a recall, lives would have been saved.
Whether it's extensive enough, whether the time frame is appropriate for the recall, whether the number of models involved is appropriate, and to police the notices and how the recall is actually conducted to make sure it's effective.
There's not a constitutional right to car seats. There's not a constitutional right to automobiles.
But attorney and gun enthusiast Keith Mark notes there is a constitutional right to guns, the Second Amendment. Mark, who's also co-hosted an outdoor channel hunting show, argues the slippery slope. Giving the government any new ins to regulate even gun safety could, in the wrong political climate, lead to infringing on that Second Amendment right. Instead, Mark points to the Remington courthouse experience as a safer way to balance rights and keep gun makers on target.
And then the gun manufacturers know that ultimately, if they should have recalled, they didn't recall, people were injured, they're going to face monetary damages.
Remington and other gun makers have faced losses in court.
The firearms industry is completely policing itself.
And if the class action settlement Tim Monsees helped negotiate wins approval, Remington will, in effect, be recalling more than 6 million rifles. But he doesn't buy the slippery slope argument of an agency ordering a recall.
I think sometimes what we're doing is perceived, and wrongfully so, as being anti-firearm. No, I'm anti-unsafe firearms.
Haven't touched it since.
Jim Welch retired his firearm. Blessed, he says, that his Remington's misfires didn't maim, or worse, kill.
Even if the gun is defective, it still would mess me up for life.
Tomorrow in Judge Ortry Smith's federal courtroom, final argument on the proposed Remington class action settlement begins. The 1 o'clock hearing in downtown Kansas City sets the stage for Remington to repair defective triggers at no cost to consumers worldwide who send in their rifles. Jim Welch says his will stay in its box. As for the class action lawsuit itself, we've placed a link to thousands of documents uncovered during the litigation. Fox4KC.com, just search gun recall. John Holt, Fox 4 News, working for you.